Aloha everyone, what's going on my dudes? Welcome to another RuneScape discussion video. For this video, we're going to be talking about updates that were worked on but never came to fruition. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go.
Cats is the illest. What you talking about, Willis?
Alright guys, before we talk about that, I do want to say that if you're part of the RuneScape newsletter, you got the email that let us know about the 20-year anniversary, and here they actually showed us exactly what each week is going to give in terms of the content focus and what kind of benefits you could expect from them. So we do know that week 2 is combats, which includes 50% more Slayer XP, which is great. No death costs. It's going to be a good opportunity for you to push in rage on certain bosses, as well as maybe trying a new boss you've never tried before. Increased chance of rare drops and lucky items. So it's going to be a great week. Week 3, we got mini games, a little less exciting to be honest, but during this week, every mini game will get you double currency for whatever mini game that is. So it's a good time to get some of those mini game exclusive rewards. So do look into it if you're interested. And finally, we got week 4, which is skilling. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to get 50% extra XP in all gathering skills. So that's worth noting. Do know that it is gathering skills, so not going to work for things like fletching, herb lore, you name it, so on and so forth. Anyways, yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. Those are the rest of the weeks for January during this 20-year anniversary celebration. Having said that, we're now going to go into the discussion topic, which is updates that were worked on that ended up getting scrapped. What sparked this discussion is a roundtable live stream that they came out with on Wednesday, where a couple of the JMods talked about things that they worked on that never entered the game. So we're going to specifically talk about those updates for this video. So let's get started. Jumping in, we got Mod Jack, and he talked about a quest rework to the Sheep Herder quest that he was working on. Basically, he made it so there was a sheepdog at some point that you can control. You would have like a ball that you could throw, and the sheepdog would chase after it, and it would be planted in a certain spot. And the way it would be used is basically the sheeps that you're trying to herd will not only run away from you when you prod them, but also run away from the sheepdog. So you could kind of triangulate and position the dog in such a way that would get the sheep to go exactly where you wanted to and make that overall quest far less tedious and potentially much more enjoyable. I don't know what extent he had updated the quest more than that, but that's what he said he did on stream. He said he was about halfway through it, but things happened and he ended up moving on to clan citadels and working on that. So you can get an idea of the time frame as to when this was being worked on. So that's definitely interesting. I wonder what other kind of quest reworks or whatever that they tried to work on, but things happened and they never got it to be release ready. Because there is a lot of quests that I wish they would go back and fix and, you know, just modernize overall. But I guess Sheep Herder's one that we aren't gonna see, unfortunately. Do let me know what you guys think about it though. Do you think the sheepdog would have made that much more bearable, or are you just not interested in quests at all and it wouldn't matter either way? Moving on, we got Mod Raven, and he didn't talk about any particular piece of content, but he talked about aspects of content that he had worked on that had to get scrapped. And if you know him, it totally makes sense for these kinds of things. So in the quest Kindred Spirits, he actually wanted to kill off Hans. I don't know if that means some NPC would have replaced him and that's how we would have gotten our vet capes. But yeah, he wanted to kill off Hans and it ended up not happening. He also wasn't allowed to torture people. He had an entire sequence in which you would torture people in the quest. He said everybody was pretty much on board. They had concept art for it. Everything was made, ready to go. But Mod Osborne said that, you know, they can't have torture in their quest. So that ultimately ended up getting scrapped. I don't know to what extent it was or how graphic it ended up getting or would have gotten, but definitely interesting and definitely very Mod Raven to say the least. So let me know what you guys think about that. Do you wish we had more things like that where RuneScape was able to go a little bit more graphic, or are you fine with the perfectly lighthearted game that we have now? Ultimately, I don't ever think we're ever going to get anything like that, to be honest, even with Mod Raven working there, but who knows. Next up, moving on, we got Mod Timbo, and this one to me is probably the most interesting of everything we talked about so far, and that is he was actually working on a TAI BWO cleanup rework, and from the sounds of it, he actually had a lot done. He said he put 6 months of development into it, and for whatever reason, Mod Osborne didn't want it to become in the game or didn't feel like it was worth doing, but it was an entire rework to that cleanup minigame. There was a bunch of things to do. There was like daily content, he said, where he had reasons to return to it on a regular basis. The fences that break down all the time would actually stay up together if you repaired them. He also included things like mini bosses. I guess there would be higher tiers of the creatures that attack you whenever you're hacking away at the jungle. And there was a new tree that was going to be introduced as Rosewood Tree, which is really unfortunate that that got scrapped. I really hope that someday they revisit it with a Karamja rework. It was aimed at the time to be a low-level skilling activity. However, that doesn't necessarily mean they need to stick with that if they end up reworking it in the future, particularly, like I said, with a Karamja rework. Let me know what you guys think of that. As I said, that's probably my most interesting thing for this video, the TAI BWO cleanup rework, introducing new exciting and daily gameplay that could potentially make it a hub for woodcutting. I'd love to see that. Speaking of trees and whatnot though, Timbo also said that he had worked on a quest, a Timbo quest, if you will. It basically involved all of the dead trees in the game, because if you don't know, Mod Timbo is notorious for deleting trees from the game world, and the quest was ultimately meant to be a joke, alluding to that aspect of Mod Timbo. So basically what would happen is, as you're woodcutting, you had a random chance that you would get an amulet of tree speaking. This would allow you to talk to the trees, and as if you talk to the different types of the trees, the different tiers, you would see that they'd have very different personalities. There'd probably be like jokes and puns here and there, but ultimately you'd end up finding a dead tree in Yanil and find out that it actually used to be a special ent, and he would lead you on your quest to hunt down Timbo and bring him to justice for taking down and killing all these trees. It's one of those quests akin to like the Bacon quest, where it's very lighthearted and meant to be just a giant joke and doesn't really affect the lore, but I think a lot of people would appreciate it and get a lot of laughs out of it. So it's unfortunate that it never came to be, but you know, it's always possible that it could end up being a future piece of content if it ever gets relooked at. And that's pretty much it. Two things I do want to note though before we close out is that later on in the live stream they did have Mod Osborne and Mod Mark show up on screen, talk about the game in 20 years, etc. On there, Mod JD had asked, what is some content that you wouldn't have wanted released in the game based on the way it ended up panning out? Interestingly enough, Mod Mark had said that he didn't or wouldn't have put Hunter into the game. I guess he didn't feel like it was ready or added much to the game itself. Looking at it now, I can't see it being removed, considering Big Game Hunter specifically is my personal favorite piece of skilling content in the entire game. I don't particularly care for Hunter in every other aspect, but definitely Big Game Hunter is by far the best skilling activity in the entire game, in my opinion. Mod Osborne, however, didn't really answer the question in that manner. Instead, he talked about updates that he didn't want to put into the game, but then ended up getting into the game and were a big hit, and that is Elite Dungeons. When the idea was pitched, he did not want to do this piece of content, which is astonishing because Elite Dungeons is one of the biggest pieces of content in more ways than one, from a lore perspective, combat perspective, as well as, you know, a low-level avenue for money making. It's overall loved by a lot of people, so I don't know. I guess we learned from this video that Mod Osborne may or may not have the best eye for what is good or healthy or enjoyable for the RuneScape community. I don't know if that's something worth looking into or worth reading into, but it's interesting nonetheless. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap up the video there. Let me know what you guys think about anything we talked about in this video. I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to stay up to date on all things RuneScape related, then hit that subscribe button. Anyways, I appreciate you watching. I'm out. Aloha.